Okay. Good morning, friends, and welcome to the Main Object Big Book Study of Alcoholics Anonymous. I am an alcoholic. My name is David. Hello. What a blessing to be here with all of you once more. And I hope you're all doing well this morning. And I am going to post or put on screen share the AA preamble. And if our friend Michelle would be so kind as to do the reading. Michelle, I believe you are muted.
Oops, sorry about that. Hey, good morning. I'm Michelle. I'm an alcoholic. The AA Preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help each other to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics achieve sobriety.
Michelle, thank you so much. And now I'm going to ask everyone to join me in inviting God or our higher power into this meeting this morning by saying the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thy will, not mine, be done. And as you probably know, this is at this meeting we are a line by line big book study meeting. So if you came here this morning looking for the Evelyn Wood Express version through the big book in 20 minutes or less, I'm sorry to say you are in the wrong meeting. But as I've mentioned before, what we find is that by going slowly through the text, new insights and meanings emerge that really enrich our sober experience, or at least mine. And the other thing that I would like to share with you, and forgive me for those of you who have seen this before, is one of the things that I've learned to do in reading the book is to break the text down into 5 categories: questions, directions, and explanations, promises, warnings, and history. And you see there the colors; those are highlighter colors that I've chosen. So as I go through, I make a decision which category it might fall into. Occasionally it'll fall into 2 and I'm indecisive, so I highlight it both categories. And those, by the way, the colors and categories are in the chat if you want to check it out. And what that does is it not only helps me understand, but it makes it so much easier to share this material with a newcomer and explain what's going on. So our format is I'll share till about 7 or so, and then we will open it up for questions. And today, as I mentioned earlier, we are starting a new chapter. We are on chapter 2. There is a solution on page 17. So, and we're starting at the beginning, of course. And I think if I can not get too distracted, we're going to try to knock out 2 whole pages and get to the top of page 19 in the next 24 minutes. So let's see if that happens. And just as a heads up as well, this meeting is being recorded. It is audio only, so we are within the guidelines of the traditions. And the recording does stop. I stop the recording at 7 when I'm done reviewing the text, so that for those people who want to share, you don't have to be concerned that it'll be recorded or out there for the world. So, and the reason that we do that also is, in case you don't know, is that all of the meetings are archived on our YouTube channel. So if you want to go back and review, or somebody misses a meeting, you can check it out there. And speaking of missing a meeting, one last announcement. I promise this is the last one. Is it 3 weeks from now, I believe? On the first weekend in the first Sunday in March, there will be, let me make sure I've got that correct. A smarter person would have written this down. Yes, which is, I believe, the 5th of March. We will have no meeting. We will be on hiatus for 1 week because I'm going on vacation, of all places, to North Carolina. So go figure. It's the only place to go, I hear. So with that, okay, we're jumping in to the top of page 17. Just to overview what we are going to be talking about today. In chapter 1 in Bill's story, just to summarize very briefly, Bill's aim in writing that chapter in the way that he did and telling his own story was to create this bond of identification with the suffering alcoholic. And he did that by using his own story and he wanted to use his own story to convey 2 things. One, he knew what he was talking about. And 2, I think even more importantly, no matter how much you are suffering, there is hope. And now in chapter 2, so we've gone through Bill's story, and we're in chapter 2. Here, chapter 2 is very closely linked to chapter 1. The focus is here in this chapter is conveying a clear overview of the AA solution, the AA remedy, if you will. And in this first section, this first 2 pages that we're going to be reading, what I see is that Bill is doing 2 key things. And he is preparing us, or preparing the reader, for the solution that follows by emphasizing 2 critical facts. And here are those facts. 1, we of Alcoholics Anonymous, just like it begins, we of Alcoholics Anonymous have a solution. And 2, and this is something that sometimes gets missed in the discussions, 2, we are safe. And we'll notice that as we go along. And what I mean by safe is, I don't know about any other of you on this call, but when I was drinking, there were times, just occasionally, when I could be a little sensitive, especially when the discussion came to my drinking. And I could be a little defensive. And I could feel a little judged. And what Bill is trying to convey, especially in these first 2 pages, is you are free of that here. You're not going to find that here. And I think that's really important, because Bill really gets into the mind of the alcoholic with this. And so some questions for reflection, and that is 3 of them, and these are in the chat. I think, let's see, do I see them? Rich, if you get an opportunity, if you could post those, I think they were part of the email. I could be, if I didn't include them, please let me know and I'll shoot them over to you. Some questions just to think about. One, if you were still a suffering alcoholic, what would this first section mean to you? And two, now as a sober AA member, which of Bill's quote unquote suggestions appeals to you the most, and which is the most challenging? Now, I'm saying that because in this section, we'll see that Bill really addresses this section and this chapter to two audiences. One's the suffering alcoholic, and two are established. The second group is established AA members, and so we'll see Bill has some suggestions for us. And the third question is, do I believe that I am properly armed with the facts about myself? So with all that said, I'm going to jump in, and it starts, this first paragraph, by the way, on 17. I have that highlighted in blue, which means for me it is a promise or an assurance. We of Alcoholics Anonymous know thousands of men and women who were once just as hopeless as Bill. Nearly all have recovered. They have solved the drink problem. We read that today as sober AA members, and that may just seem obvious. But think about, again, the primary audience who this was intended for. This is intended for an audience who is absolutely hopeless, who has tried everything, who cannot drink safely anymore, and who are experiencing the despair, shame, destruction, the wreckage of alcoholism. And what he's saying is we have recovered from that, and we've solved it. The other thing that I think is incredible, if we can sort of shift hats for a second. Okay, so we're wearing the hat of the AA newcomer or the suffering alcoholic. Let's shift our hats for a second. And for a second, let's become the established AA member. What is it saying in this paragraph? We of Alcoholics Anonymous. That means all of us. And what that's saying is, here is our message. Here is the message as a sober AA member. Here is the message that I have an obligation to convey to you. Remember that responsibility statement. And this is what they're talking about right here. So moving on, this next sentence here on page 17 is, I have that in green for explanation. And we are average Americans. All sections of this country and many of its occupations are represented, as well as many political, economic, social, and religious backgrounds, period. I think what's important, of course, Bill's words are important, but I think what's even more important is to tune into his larger message. And the larger message he's trying to convey in that first sentence is, it's a really big tent here, ladies and gentlemen. And what I mean by that, in case you don't know, that means all are welcome. If you're suffering from alcoholism, you are welcome here, regardless of your background. The other, again, I'm going to shift hats now. Now I'm the sober AA member and I'm reading this. What this says to me is that I have an obligation to be open and welcoming to everybody who walks in that door. if they are suffering from alcoholism and looking for a solution, regardless of economic background, race, sexual orientation, gender identity, any of that. I have an obligation to make the tent as big as possible. Moving onward. Man, and this next sentence, if you had to highlight, like, what are the top 10 directions embodied in the big book? Here it comes, folks. Next sentence. We are people who ordinarily would not mix. And what Bill is saying is that in any other setting, in any other context, we might find differences. If all of us now were transported into, God forbid, a political rally, all bets are off. But as long as we are in an AA meeting, we get along. Now, these next several sentences, I am choosing to double highlight as both a direction and a promise. So green and blue. Take your pick. You can do that, or I just get a little indecisive. But there exists among us a fellowship, a friendliness, an understanding which is indescribably wonderful. John, yes, go ahead.
Morning, Avalon. Good morning, everybody. Right off the bat, this Bill is trying to say to the people out there who are either suffering or just reading or whatever, that we are not an elite group. We are not somebody with special gifts in order to recover from alcoholism. We're ordinary people, just like you. The person that is picking up this book and starting to read, we want them to feel that they too, just because of who they are able to recover just as the rest of us have, with no particular qualifications. He wanted to emphasize that we're not some kind of specially gifted group that can recover. Anybody, average Americans who's reading this has the ability to recover, not just us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. Then he goes on, and he makes the case. Let's see. We are like the passengers of a great liner, the moment after rescue from shipwreck, when camaraderie, joyousness, and democracy pervade the vessel from steerage to captain's table. Again, that concept of the big tent. Unlike the feelings of the ship's passengers, however, our joy in escape from disaster does not subside as we go our individual ways. Another key piece of direction, meaning that when the heat is off, or as I used to hear the old timers say, when I got the wrinkles out of my belly, am I still doing what needs to be done here? Am I still coming at this with enthusiasm and with commitment and dedication? So unlike the feelings of the ship's passengers, however, our joy in escape from disaster does not subside as we go our individual ways. The feeling of having shared, here we go, folks, in a common peril is one element in the powerful cement that binds us. And there we have, as we're going to see multiple times in our text, is As far as I know, Bill never worked as a mason or as a contractor, but he's got several really important analogies that involved masonry, stone, that kind of thing. And here's one of the first. The cement that binds us. Now, we could talk all day about the kind of the rhetorical significance of that, but I think what's more important is to ask myself, am I bound to all of you with cement? Or is this just this thing, this club that I belong to? Like the macrame club or something like that. I don't even know if they have macrame clubs anymore. You can tell I grew up in the 70s. The next sentence, the last sentence in this paragraph, I have in pink as a warning. But that in itself would never have held us together as we are now joined. And why do I have that as a warning? I have it as a warning because what Bill is saying there is the bond that we have, the fellowship, is critical. However, if our connection here is just through the fellowship, it's not going to cut it. We're not going to be effective, and we may not stay sober. And what he's saying to the sufferer is, we're not just a club. We're not just this, friendly, enthusiastic group. What really underscores, what really binds us together is, as we'll see in the next paragraph, the common solution. And what that common solution is, I'll give you a spoiler alert. It is a spiritual program for living. This next paragraph, which takes us to the bottom of page 17, I also have, again, in my wonderful indecisiveness, again, as a direction in green and a blue, as a promise. The tremendous fact for every one of us is we have discovered a common solution. And that sentence, I believe, is the key point of the entire reading today. We have a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree, and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. Boom. That is not just a key assurance for the suffering person, but I believe, at least where I am in my sobriety today, that sentence is a critical bit of direction. And specifically what I mean by that is my relationship to all of you, including those people I may not agree with, including those people who may not do the program as I think they should be doing, including those people who may have a different motivation or agenda than what I approve of. I join to them how? In brotherly and harmonious action. Because I say that, maybe I'm the only one. I came here, totally flustered and, in a fog, and suddenly I learn a few steps and a few traditions, and suddenly I'm the sheriff of Alcoholics Anonymous. and I'm going to let you know if you don't have it right. Not that self-righteousness appeared anywhere on my fifth step. So I just want to make that clear. Okay, moving on. Brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism. And again, there's that second part of the message, meaning not only do we have a solution, we are safe. We are safe. And moving on page 18 at the top, the first two sentences I have as direction. An illness of this sort, and we have come to believe it an illness, involves those about us in a way no other human sickness can. If a person has cancer, all are sorry for him and no one is angry or hurt. See what he's talking about there? He's reaffirming that it's not a moral issue. It's an illness. However, notice what he does in these next several sentences. He's saying it's a unique kind of illness because why? And the rest of this paragraph I have as warning. Why is this a unique illness? It's unique because, as he says, but not so with the alcoholic illness, for it is there, for with it, goes annihilation of all things in life, all things worthwhile in life, It engulfs all those whose lives touch the sufferers. It brings misunderstanding, fierce resentment, financial insecurity, disgusted friends and employers, warped lives of blameless children, sad wives and parents. Anyone can increase the list. So he's saying a lot there, folks. He's saying, remember I talked about the big tent for Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, guess what else is a big tent? The people whose lives we destroy. That's a big tent as well. And what he's saying, though, is he's trying to convey that, yes, this is an illness, and all that stuff you feel shame and remorse about, that's not because you're a bad person. That's not because you're evil. That's not because you're amoral. It's because that's how the illness manifests. Here's what I'm going to do, folks. Because I want to leave time for discussion. So I'm going to cut it a little short. I am going to do the next 3 paragraphs and leave the bottom of 18 for next week, and so we'll break a little bit earlier with the text. But anyway, this next sentence, again, a critical, and now I'm on the second paragraph on 18, critical direction. We hope this volume will inform and comfort those who are, or those who may be affected. There are many. Let's put our 2 hats on for a second. First hat, sufferer. I'm the sufferer, and I'm going, what am I going to get out of this? They're going to inform me, and they're going to comfort me. Well, okay, I'm interested, and I'm going to be comforted, so maybe it's safe. Maybe I'll trust you. Second hat, AA member. When I'm talking to that new person, am I informing them, and am I comforting them? And believe me, I'm well aware, I've sponsored a lot of men over the years. How you inform and comfort is going to differ from person to person, and the boundaries you use and the picture you paint is going to differ from person to person. this next sentence, or paragraph, sorry, paragraph 3, and then we'll actually, why don't we end there with paragraph 3? I have it all as warning, so it's in pink. Highly competent psychiatrists who have dealt with us have found it sometimes impossible to persuade, an alcoholic to discuss his situation without reserve. Strangely enough, wives, parents, and intimate friends usually find us even more unapproachable than do the psychiatrist and the doctor. So for the suffering alcoholic, he's saying, we get it. We get that you've alienated everybody. And for me, as the recovering alcoholic, when I read that, what I say, when it says, strangely enough, parents and intimate friends usually find us even more unapproachable. Why do they find us unapproachable? Well, I can't speak for anybody else. But they found me inapproachable because I made it clear when anyone tried to approach me about my drinking that you were way out of line. And this is none of your business. And the reason that I responded that way, and this was only what I learned when I did some inventory work, was that you were mislabeling. This is the way the delusion worked in me. You were mislabeling me as and you were judging me as a person who had a problem with alcohol. I didn't have a problem with alcohol. This is my thinking. I needed alcohol. Alcohol was my solution, not my problem. And with that, I've gone 4 minutes over. So why don't we pause there, and next week when we pick up again, we'll do it from the 4th paragraph on 18, an italics paragraph, and we'll take it from there. So again, I want to open it up for comments or discussion.